events or unexplained phenomena. Others talked about government experiments and secret facilities designed to study alien materials. Emily typed furiously on her laptop one evening, her brow furrowed in concentration. "Okay, listen to this," she said, glancing up at Daniel. "There's a guy named Dr. Alan Hayes who used to work for NASA. He specialized in studying unidentified objects, meteors, space debris, stuff like that, but then he disappeared from public view about 10 years ago. People think he went underground because his research got too controversial." Daniel leaned forward, his interest piqued. "Do you think he's still working on this kind of thing? Like maybe he knows what my rock is?" "It's possible," Emily replied. "If anyone could help us figure out what's going on, it's him. I found an email address listed under one of his old papers. It's worth a shot." They crafted a careful message explaining their situation without revealing too much. Daniel described the fragment briefly, mentioning its unusual properties, but leaving out details about his own abilities. He ended the email by saying they were seeking advice and hoped Dr. Hayes might be willing to meet with them. After hitting send, Daniel felt a mix of hope and dread. What if Dr. Hayes ignored them? Or worse, what if he alerted authorities? For now, all they could do was wait. Meanwhile, Jake Miller's curiosity had turned into obsession. He couldn't shake the feeling that Daniel was hiding something big. The way he carried himself lately, calmer, quieter, almost untouchable, didn't match the image of the shy, awkward kid Jake had been bullying for months. Something had changed, and Jake wanted to know what. With Ryan's help, Jake dug deeper into Daniel's life. They snooped around school records, talked to teachers, and even questioned some of Lily's classmates. Slowly, they pieced together a picture of Daniel's world, his parents' death, his guardianship of Lily, and the countless hours he spent juggling jobs and responsibilities far beyond his age. Armed with this knowledge, Jake saw an opportunity, not just to humiliate Daniel, but to break him completely. One afternoon, as Daniel walked Lily home from school, Jake and Ryan cornered them near the park. "Hey, Carter," Jake called out, blocking their path. "I heard some interesting things about you, like how your precious little sister depends on you for everything." Daniel froze, his protective instincts kicking in immediately. "Leave her alone," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "Oh, don't worry," Jake sneered. "We're not here for her. We just want to remind you what happens when people step out of line. You've been acting weird lately, like you're better than everyone else. Maybe it's time we showed everyone the real Daniel Carter." Lily clung to Daniel's arm, her eyes wide with fear. "Danny, what's happening?" she whispered. "It's okay, Lil," Daniel reassured her, though his heart raced. He glanced around, searching for an escape route. There were too many people nearby. Using his powers would risk exposing everything, but standing there, defenseless, felt equally impossible. Before Jake could take another step closer, Emily appeared out of nowhere, stepping between them. "Back off, Jake," she snapped, her tone sharp and commanding. "You don't want to do this." Jake smirked, clearly amused by her interference. "And what are you going to do, Dawson? Call your mommy?" "No," Emily shot back. "But I will tell everyone here exactly why you're picking on a kid who's just trying to survive. How does that sound?" For a moment, Jake hesitated. His bravado wavered as he realized Emily wasn't bluffing. If she spilled the truth about Daniel's sacrifices, Jake's reputation would crumble. Finally, he muttered something under his breath and stormed off, dragging Ryan with him. Once they were gone, Emily turned to Daniel, her expression softening. "Are you okay?" Daniel nodded, though his hands were trembling. "Yeah, thanks, to you." "They're getting bolder," Emily said quietly. "We need to figure this out before things escalate." A few days later, Daniel received a reply from Dr. Hayes. The email was brief but promising. "Your description of the object matches materials I've studied in the past. Meet me tomorrow at the coordinates below. Come alone." The location was an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. Daniel debated whether to trust the message, but desperation outweighed caution. He needed answers and protection for Lily's sake. That night, he told Emily about the meeting. She insisted on coming along, despite his protests. "No way. Am I letting you go alone?" she said firmly. "What if something goes wrong?" Reluctantly, Daniel agreed. Together, they made plans to sneak out early the next morning, ensuring Lily wouldn't wake up while they were gone. When they arrived at the warehouse, the air felt heavy, charged with an energy neither of them could explain. Inside, a man stood waiting for them. He was tall and thin, with graying hair and glasses perched on his nose. Despite his disheveled appearance, there was an intensity in his gaze that made Daniel feel both nervous and hopeful. "You must be Daniel," Dr. Hayes said, extending a hand. "And this is—" "My friend Emily," Daniel replied. "She's helping me." Dr. Hayes nodded, gesturing for them to sit. Once they were settled, he began explaining what he knew. "The fragment you possess is part of a larger phenomenon, a rare class of extraterrestrial material capable of altering biological systems. Its effects vary depending on the individual, but in most cases, prolonged exposure leads to enhanced physical capabilities." "So it's making me stronger?" Daniel asked. "Yes," Dr. Hayes confirmed. "But there's a catch. These changes aren't permanent or stable. The longer you interact with the fragment, the greater the risk of cellular damage. In extreme cases, it can lead to— well, let's just say it doesn't end well." Daniel swallowed hard, the weight of those words sinking in. All this time, he'd thought the fragment was a gift. Now he realized it might also be a curse. "What should I do?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "That's up to you," Dr. Hayes replied. "Destroying the fragment would eliminate the source of your abilities, but it might also reverse any changes already made to your body. Keeping it means accepting the risks, including the possibility of losing control." As they left the warehouse, Daniel felt torn. On one hand, the fragment gave him power, the ability to protect Lily and provide for her in ways he never could before. On the other hand, it was a ticking time bomb, threatening to destroy everything he held dear. Back at home, Daniel hid the fragment once again, resolving to use it sparingly. But trouble wasn't done with him yet. Unbeknownst to him, Jake and Ryan had followed them to the warehouse, watching from a distance. They didn't understand what they saw, but they knew enough to realize Daniel was involved in something strange and potentially dangerous. Jake grinned as he climbed into his car. "This is it," he said to Ryan. "Our chance to take him down for good." Little did they know, their actions would set off a chain reaction neither side could have anticipated. Document. Part 2. That night, Daniel sat on the edge of his bed, staring at the small wooden box tucked under his mattress. It wasn't much, just an old shoebox he'd found in the attic, but it held something extraordinary. Inside was a jagged piece of rock, no bigger than his fist, with veins of glowing blue running through it like frozen lightning. He had discovered it last summer while wandering through the woods behind their house. At first, he thought it was just a strange-looking stone, maybe part of some long-forgotten construction project. But when he touched it, something happened. His fingers tingled, and for a moment he felt different, stronger, faster, like his body had been plugged into an invisible power source. The sensation passed quickly, but ever since then, Daniel noticed changes in himself. Little things that didn't make sense unless you were looking for them. Once, he accidentally lifted the side of their car to retrieve a fallen wrench. Another time, he caught a falling plate in midair without even thinking about it. And whenever he got angry or scared, his reflexes sharpened, almost unnaturally so. At first, he tried to ignore it. Powers like these belonged in comic books, not real life. But as weeks turned into months, Daniel couldn't deny what was happening. Something inside him had shifted, and the meteorite fragment seemed to be the cause. Now, sitting alone in the dim light of his bedside lamp, he wondered if he should tell someone. Maybe Emily. She had been kind to him, understanding in ways few others were. Still, trusting her or anyone with such a secret felt impossible. What if she thought he was crazy? Or worse, what if she told someone else? The sound of soft footsteps interrupted his thoughts. Lily appeared in the doorway, clutching her favorite stuffed bunny. Her blonde hair stuck out in every direction, and her pajamas were slightly too big, making her look even smaller than she already was. "Danny?" she whispered, rubbing her eyes sleepily. "Hey, Lil," Daniel said, forcing a smile. "What's wrong?" "I had a bad dream," she murmured, shuffling closer. "Can I sleep with you tonight?" "Of course." Daniel scooted over, patting the space beside him. Lily climbed onto the bed, snuggling close as he pulled the blanket over both of them. For a moment, all his worries faded. This was why he did everything he did, for moments like this, where it felt like nothing could touch them. But reality always came knocking sooner or later. The next morning, after dropping Lily off at school, Daniel headed straight to work. As usual, the diner was packed with customers, the air thick with the smell of grease and coffee. He tied on his apron and got to work, clearing tables and washing dishes until his hands were red and raw. By the time his shift ended, his muscles ached and his head throbbed from lack of sleep. Yet there was no time to rest. He still had homework to finish before picking Lily up from school. As he walked home, his mind drifted back to the meteorite fragment. What exactly was it? Where did it come from? And why had it chosen him? These questions gnawed at him, growing louder with each passing day. Finally, unable to resist any longer, Daniel decided to test its effects one more time. That evening, after Lily fell asleep, he took the fragment out of its hiding place and placed it on the kitchen table. Taking a deep breath, he reached out and touched it again. Instantly, warmth surged through his body, followed by a strange buzzing sensation. His vision sharpened, colors becoming brighter, sounds clearer. Even the faint hum of the refrigerator seemed amplified. Then came the strength. Slowly, cautiously, Daniel gripped the edge of the heavy dining table, one that required 2 adults to move, and lifted it effortlessly with one hand. His heart raced as he set it back down. He glanced toward Lily's room, half expecting her to burst in and ask what all the noise was about. But she stayed asleep, blissfully unaware of what her brother was capable of. Lowering himself into a chair, Daniel stared at the fragment, his mind spinning. If he could control this power, maybe he could use it to protect Lily, to ensure they never went hungry or struggled to pay rent again. But using it also meant risking exposure. What if someone saw him? What if Jake and his gang found out? The next day at school, Daniel kept his distance from everyone, lost in thought. He avoided eye contact during class and barely touched his lunch, earning yet another round of jeers from Jake and his crew. "Look who's too good to eat with us," Jake sneered, tossing a crumpled napkin at him. "What's the matter, Carter? Too busy planning your escape from Losertown?" Daniel clenched his fists beneath the table, fighting the urge to lash out. He could crush Jake's arm with one hand if he wanted to. The realization sent a chill down his spine. "No," he reminded himself. "You can't let them see. Not yet. Not ever." After school, Daniel wandered into the library, hoping to find some peace. To his surprise, Emily was there again, sitting at their usual table with a stack of books spread out before her. When she saw him, she smiled warmly. "Hey, stranger." "Hey," Daniel replied, sliding into the seat across from her. He hesitated, debating whether to say anything about the fragment. In the end, curiosity won out. "Do you believe in aliens?" Emily raised an eyebrow, clearly caught off guard. "Aliens? Like little green men and flying saucers?" "Not exactly," Daniel admitted. "But what if there was proof? Something that didn't fit with how we understand the world?" She tilted her head, intrigued. "Are you saying you've seen something like that?" Daniel hesitated again, weighing his words carefully. "Maybe. There's this thing, a rock, I guess. It's weird, glowing and stuff. Ever since I found it, I've been feeling different." Emily leaned forward, her interest piqued. "Different how?" He hesitated once more, then decided to show her. They left the library and walked to his house, which thankfully was empty since Lily was still at school. Leading Emily to the kitchen, Daniel retrieved the fragment from its hiding spot and placed it on the counter. "Watch this," he said, touching it gently. Within seconds, the transformation began. His posture straightened, his movements became fluid and precise, and his strength surged. To demonstrate, he picked up a cast-iron skillet from the stove, a ati skillet that normally required 2 hands to lift, and held it aloft with ease. Emily gasped, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Oh my God. It's not magic or anything," Daniel explained quickly. "It's just science, I think. Or maybe something beyond science. I don't know. All I know is that it makes me stronger, faster, better." For a long moment, Emily simply stared at him, processing everything she'd just witnessed. Finally, she spoke. "This is incredible and terrifying. Do you have any idea what this means?" "No," Daniel admitted. "And that's the problem. I don't know if it's dangerous or safe. I don't even know where it came from. But I need answers, Em. If I'm going to keep Lily safe, I need to understand what this thing is." Emily nodded slowly, her expression thoughtful. "Okay, let's figure it out together." Over the next few days, Emily dove headfirst into research, scouring the internet for information about mysterious rocks, alien artifacts, and unexplained phenomena. Meanwhile, Daniel practiced controlling his newfound abilities, learning how to harness them without drawing attention. Together, they uncovered references to similar objects in classified government reports and conspiracy theories. One name kept popping up: Dr. Alan Hayes, a reclusive scientist rumored to specialize in studying anomalies like the fragment. "We should contact him," Emily suggested one afternoon as they sat in Daniel's living room, surrounded by piles of printed articles and scribbled notes. "If anyone can help us, it's him." Daniel hesitated. Reaching out to a stranger felt risky, especially given how secretive he needed to remain. But he trusted Emily, and she believed contacting Dr. Hayes was their best shot. Reluctantly, he agreed. Little did they know, trouble was brewing elsewhere. Jake Miller, still smarting from Daniel's refusal to engage in their taunts, grew suspicious of his sudden bursts of confidence. With the help of his older brother Ryan, Jake started digging into Daniel's past, uncovering details about his parents' death and guardianship of Lily. Armed with this knowledge, Jake devised a plan to expose Daniel's secrets and destroy whatever fragile stability he had managed to build. Unaware of the storm gathering on the horizon, Daniel focused on mastering his powers, determined to protect those he loved. For now at least hope outweighed fear. But how long would that last? Document. Daniel Carter walked down the cracked sidewalk, his hands stuffed deep into the pockets of his worn-out jacket. The morning air was cold, and the chill seemed to seep through every thread of his clothes. His backpack held, together with duct tape, bounced against his back with each step. It wasn't heavy because of books or supplies. It was light, almost empty, except for a few crumpled papers and an old notebook he hadn't used in weeks. He didn't have time for homework anymore, not when there were bills to pay and meals to cook. At 15 years old, Daniel carried burdens that most adults would struggle to bear. 2 years ago, his parents had died in a car accident on a rainy night. One moment, they were driving home from a family dinner, laughing about Lily's toothless grin after she'd lost her first tooth. The next, their lives were gone in an instant, leaving behind only memories, and 2 children who needed someone to take care of them. Daniel had stepped up without hesitation. There was no one else. No grandparents nearby, no aunts or uncles willing to drop everything and move to their small town. So he became both brother and parent to 6-year-old Lily. He got a job at the local diner, washing dishes during the early mornings before school, and staying late into the evenings whenever they needed extra help. On weekends, he mowed lawns and fixed broken fences for neighbors. Anything to make ends meet. But none of this mattered to Jake Miller and his gang. To them, Daniel was just another loser. Someone to laugh at, to mock, to push around. They called him Serious Dan because he never joined in their jokes or pranks. They didn't know or care that his silence came from exhaustion, not arrogance. Every day, as soon as the bell rang for lunch, they found him sitting alone, under the big oak tree near the basketball court, eating a sandwich made of stale bread and peanut butter. That's where they ambushed him today. "Hey, Carter," Jake shouted, sauntering over with 3 of his friends trailing behind him like shadows. Their sneakers scuffed against the pavement, kicking up tiny clouds of dust. "What's wrong? Afraid to hang out with real people?" Daniel didn't look up. He kept chewing slowly, focusing on the taste of salt and peanuts in his mouth. He knew better than to engage. Arguing with Jake only made things worse. Still, the word stung. Real people. As if he wasn't human, as if his life didn't count. For anything. "You hear me?" Jake demanded, louder this time. He kicked the base of the tree, causing a shower of dead leaves to fall onto Daniel's head. His friends snickered, nudging each other and whispering insults Daniel couldn't quite catch but could feel all the same. Finally, Daniel glanced up, meeting Jake's smug grin with tired eyes. "Leave me alone," he said quietly. His voice was calm, almost too calm, which only fueled Jake's irritation. "Oh, come on," Jake sneered, leaning closer. "Don't tell me you're still mad about last week. You know we were just messing with you. Last week. That had been particularly bad." Jake and his crew had stolen Daniel's lunch right out of his locker, dumping it onto the floor while the entire hallway watched. Someone had even filmed it, posting the video online with the caption, "Serious Dan gets served." It went viral, within hours, earning hundreds of likes and comments. By the time Daniel got home that evening, Lily had already seen it. She cried herself to sleep that night, asking why everyone hated her big brother so much. "I'm not mad," Daniel replied, his tone flat. "I just want to eat my lunch in peace." Jake frowned, clearly disappointed by the lack of reaction. He wanted anger, tears, something to prove he was winning. Instead, Daniel gave him nothing. No emotion, no fight, no satisfaction. Frustrated, Jake grabbed Daniel's sandwich and threw it onto the ground, stomping on it with his shoe. Peanut butter smeared across the concrete, mixing with dirt and gravel. "There," Jake said, crossing his arms. "Now you can eat your lunch in peace. Enjoy." His friends erupted in laughter, high-fiving each other as they walked away. Daniel sat there for a long moment, staring at the ruined sandwich. His stomach growled, reminding him that he hadn't eaten since breakfast. But hunger wasn't new. Neither was humiliation. This was just another day in a string of countless others. When the bell rang, signaling the end of lunch, Daniel stood up and brushed off his jeans. He didn't bother picking up the mess. What was the point? Instead, he headed toward the library, seeking refuge in its quiet corners. The librarian, Mrs. Harper, always let him stay past closing hours if he promised to be careful. She never asked questions, never pried. For that, Daniel was grateful. Today, however, he wasn't alone. As he entered the library, he noticed someone sitting at his usual table, a girl with curly brown hair and glasses perched on her nose. Her name was Emily Dawson. Daniel recognized her from class, though they'd never spoken. She was quiet, always buried in a book, much like him. Emily looked up as Daniel approached, her expression softening when she saw the defeated slump of his shoulders. "Is this seat taken?" she asked, gesturing to the chair across from her. Daniel hesitated. Normally he preferred solitude, but something about Emily's gentle demeanor made him nod. "No, it's fine." He slid into the chair, setting his backpack on the floor. For a while, neither of them spoke. Emily flipped through the pages of her book, occasionally jotting notes in the margins. Daniel stared blankly at the wall, replaying the events of lunch in his mind. "You okay?" Emily finally asked, breaking the silence. Her voice was hesitant, unsure whether she was intruding. Daniel shrugged. "Yeah, I'm fine." "You don't look fine," she pressed gently. "You look tired." That was putting it mildly. Tired didn't begin to describe how Daniel felt. Exhausted, overwhelmed, trapped, those words came closer, but he couldn't say any of that. Not to her. Not to anyone. "It's nothing," he muttered, avoiding her gaze. Emily studied him for a moment, then closed her book. "Look, I don't mean to pry, But if something's going on, maybe talking about it would help. Sometimes keeping everything bottled up makes it worse. Daniel sighed, running a hand through his messy hair. He wanted to tell her to leave him alone, to stop asking questions he couldn't answer, but instead he found himself saying, "It's hard, you know? Trying to do everything by yourself." Emily tilted her head, curious. "What do you mean?" "My parents." Daniel paused, swallowing the lump in his throat. Talking about them still hurt even after 2 years. "They died in an accident. Now it's just me and my little sister. I have to take care of her, make sure she's okay. But sometimes it feels like I'm drowning and there's no one to pull me out." Emily's eyes widened slightly, filled with understanding. "That must be really tough," she said softly. "How old is your sister?" 6, Daniel replied. A faint smile tugged at the corners of his lips as he thought of Lily. Her name's Lily. She's smart and funny and stubborn, all rolled into one tiny package. "She sounds amazing," Emily said, smiling back. "And you're doing an incredible job taking care of her. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." For the first time in what felt like forever, Daniel felt a flicker of warmth inside him. Maybe not everyone was against him. Maybe, just maybe, he wasn't completely alone. As the afternoon sunlight filtered through the library windows, casting golden streaks across the wooden tables, Daniel realized something important. Life might be difficult now, but he wasn't giving up, not on himself and certainly not on Lily. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he would face them head on, one step at a time. Document, Part 4. The days that followed Daniel's meeting with Dr. Hayes were tense and uncertain. He couldn't stop thinking about the risks of keeping the fragment, but he also couldn't bring himself to destroy it. It was a part of him, now intertwined with his strength, his resolve, and his ability to protect Lily. Every time he looked at her, playing on the floor, laughing at some silly cartoon, he felt the weight of his responsibility. How could he give up something that gave him the power to keep her safe? Emily noticed the change in him immediately. Gone was the cautious optimism he'd shown after their discovery. In its place was a quiet desperation, a battle raging inside him that he didn't know how to win. She tried to reassure him, reminding him they were in this together, but even her words seemed to bounce off his growing walls. "Daniel," she said one evening as they sat in his living room, surrounded by scattered notes and books, "you can't carry this all by yourself. You have to trust me and trust yourself." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It's not just about me anymore, Em. If I lose control, if something happens to Lily because of this, I don't know what I'd do." "You won't," Emily insisted. "We'll figure it out step by step, together." But Daniel wasn't so sure. The fragment's effects were unpredictable, and every use of his powers left him feeling more unstable. His muscles ached after exerting himself, and sometimes he'd wake up in the middle of the night drenched in sweat, his body trembling for no reason. Was this the beginning of the damage Dr. Hayes warned him about? Or was it just stress catching up to him? Meanwhile, Jake and Ryan hatched their plan. They had seen enough at the warehouse to confirm their suspicions. Daniel was hiding something big. Whether it was illegal, dangerous, or both, they didn't care. All they cared about was exposing him and ruining his life. "We need proof," Jake said, pacing back and forth in his bedroom. "Something concrete we can show everyone." Ryan nodded, leaning against the wall. "What if we follow him again? Maybe we can catch him using whatever weird thing he's got." Jake grinned, liking the idea. "Perfect. Let's stake out his house tonight. If we're lucky, we'll get our hands on it, and then we'll decide what to do with it." That night, while Daniel tucked Lily into bed, 2 shadowy figures lurked outside his home. They watched through the windows, waiting for any sign of unusual activity. When Daniel finally retreated to his room, they crept closer, peering inside. What they saw made their eyes widen in disbelief. Daniel stood in the center of his room, holding the glowing fragment. As he touched it, his body began to change. His posture straightened, his movements became fluid, and his presence radiated an almost otherworldly energy. Jake fumbled for his phone, recording everything. This was better than they'd hoped. Proof of something truly bizarre. Got it, Jake whispered triumphantly, lowering the camera. Now let's go before he notices us. The next day, at school, rumors spread like wildfire. By lunchtime, everyone knew about the video Jake had posted online. Titled Serious Dan's Secret, it showed blurry footage of Daniel interacting with the fragment, his transformation undeniable. Comments flooded in, ranging from mockery to outright fear. Some called him a freak, others accused him of being dangerous. Teachers and administrators demanded answers, and social services launched yet another investigation into Daniel's guardianship of Lily. When Daniel walked into the cafeteria, the room fell silent. Dozens of eyes turned toward him, filled with suspicion and hostility. Jake smirked from across the room, clearly pleased with himself. For once, Daniel didn't try to ignore them. Instead, he scanned the crowd until he found Emily, who gave him a small, reassuring nod. Later that afternoon, Daniel and Emily met in the library, away from prying eyes. "This is bad," Emily said, scrolling through her phone. "The video has thousands of views already. People are talking about calling the police." "I know," Daniel replied, his voice heavy with resignation. "I should have been more careful. But it's too late now." "What are you going to do?" Emily asked. Daniel hesitated, his mind racing. Running away crossed his mind, but leaving Lily behind wasn't an option. Fighting back seemed impossible, given how outnumbered he was. Then slowly an idea began to form. "I'm going to tell them the truth," he said finally. "All of it." Emily blinked, surprised. "Are you sure? That's a huge risk." "It's the only way," Daniel said firmly. "If I don't explain myself, they'll make up their own story. At least this way I have a chance to show them who I really am." The annual science fair arrived sooner than expected, adding pressure to an already volatile situation. Daniel had entered a project showcasing renewable energy solutions, a tribute to his late father's passion for engineering. It was simple but meaningful, a reminder of happier times. However, Jake and his gang planned to sabotage it, intending to humiliate Daniel publicly and force him to reveal his secret once and for all. As students gathered in the gymnasium, setting up displays and chatting excitedly, tension hung thick in the air. Daniel worked quietly, arranging his model wind turbine and solar panels with steady hands. Emily stayed close, offering silent support. Across the room, Jake and his friends whispered conspiratorially, their smirks promising trouble. When the judges began making their rounds, everything seemed normal, at first. But halfway through Daniel's presentation, chaos erupted. Jake and Ryan burst forward, knocking over his display and scattering pieces across the floor. "Let's see how serious you are now, Carter," Jake shouted, drawing laughter from the crowd. For a moment, Daniel froze, staring at the wreckage of his hard work. Then, without warning, something inside him snapped. His vision sharpened, his muscles tensed, and an overwhelming surge of strength coursed through his veins. Before anyone could react, he grabbed the edge of the heavy demonstration table and lifted it effortlessly, holding it aloft like it weighed nothing. The room fell silent, every eye fixed on him. Parents gasped, teachers gawked, and students whispered in awe. Jake took a step back, his bravado crumbling under the weight of Daniel's raw power. "This ends now," Daniel said, his voice calm but commanding. He lowered the table gently, then turned to face the stunned audience. "You want to know my secret? Fine. Here it is." He pulled the fragment from his pocket, holding it up for everyone to see. Its veins glowed brightly, casting an eerie blue light across the room. 2 years ago, I lost my parents in a car accident. Since then, I've been taking care of my little sister, doing everything I can to keep her safe. One day, I found this thing in the woods. It changed me, made me stronger, faster, but it also put a target on my back. Daniel paused, letting his words sink in. I didn't ask for any of this. I didn't choose to be different. All I wanted was to protect Lily and give her a chance at a normal life. So yes, I kept secrets, yes, I lied. But I did it because I had no other choice. The silence stretched on, broken only by the sound of someone clapping softly. It was Emily, standing at the edge of the crowd, tears streaming down her face. Slowly, others joined in, hesitant at first but growing louder. Even some of Jake's friends began applauding, moved by Daniel's honesty. Jake, however, looked furious. "You think this makes you a hero?" he spat. "You're still a freak." "No," Daniel replied, his tone firm. "I'm just a kid trying to survive. And maybe, just maybe, you should spend less time tearing people down and more time figuring out how to help them." With that, he turned and walked away, leaving the crowd buzzing with emotion. Outside, he found Emily waiting for him. Without a word, she hugged him tightly, offering the comfort he desperately needed. "You did it," she whispered. "You told your truth." Daniel nodded, though his heart still ached. The battle wasn't over. Not yet. But for the first time, he felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, the world wasn't as cruel as it seemed. Document. Part 5. The days after the science fair were a whirlwind of emotions for Daniel. News of his confession spread quickly, not just through the school but across the entire town. Some people were angry, accusing him of lying or being dangerous. Others felt sorry for him, seeing how much he had sacrificed to care for Lily. A few even admired his courage for standing up and telling the truth. But no matter what anyone thought, Daniel knew one thing for certain. Life would never be the same again. Social services came knocking on his door the very next morning. 2 caseworkers sat in his living room, asking questions about his guardianship of Lily and whether he could truly provide a stable home for her. Daniel answered honestly, explaining everything: the long hours at work, the struggles with money, the sacrifices he made every single day. He showed them receipts, schedules, and even letters from teachers praising Lily's progress in school. It wasn't perfect, but it was proof that he was doing everything in his power to give her a good life. Emily stayed by his side throughout the ordeal, offering support whenever she could. She helped clean the house, cooked meals, and reminded Daniel to breathe when the stress became overwhelming. "You're stronger than you think," she told him repeatedly, "and you're not alone." Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the caseworkers left. They promised to review their findings and make a decision soon. Until then, Daniel lived in limbo, unsure if they would take Lily away or let him keep her. The uncertainty gnawed at him, making it hard to focus on anything else. At school, things shifted dramatically. Jake and his gang avoided Daniel now, too embarrassed or scared to confront him directly. The video Jake posted had been taken down due to copyright claims filed by Emily, who secretly learned how to do it online. And without evidence, the bullies lost their ammunition. Instead, whispers followed Daniel wherever he went. Some kids stared openly while others whispered behind cupped hands. But there was something new in their gazes. Not fear exactly, but respect. One afternoon, as Daniel walked home from school, a group of younger students approached him nervously. "Are you really, superhuman?" one of them asked, wide-eyed. Daniel hesitated, unsure how to respond. Finally, he smiled faintly. "I'm just trying to do my best, same as everyone else." That answer seemed to satisfy them, and they ran off giggling. Watching them go, Daniel realized something important. He didn't have to be a hero or a villain. He could simply be himself, a kid who happened to have extraordinary abilities but still faced ordinary challenges. A week later, the verdict came. Social services decided to allow Daniel to remain Lily's guardian, provided he attended regular check-ins and agreed to accept help when needed. Dr. Hayes offered his assistance, volunteering to monitor Daniel's health and ensure the fragment wasn't causing permanent damage. In return, Daniel promised to use his powers responsibly, focusing on protecting those he loved rather than seeking revenge or glory. With the immediate crisis over, Daniel began thinking about the future. He couldn't rely on the fragment forever, especially knowing the risks it posed. So he started exploring ways to channel his strength into something positive. With Emily's encouragement, he joined the school's robotics club, using his mechanical skills to build gadgets designed to assist people in need. One project involved creating a lightweight exoskeleton that could help elderly neighbors carry groceries or move furniture. Another focused on designing affordable renewable energy systems for low-income families. Lily noticed the change in her big brother almost immediately. "Danny seems happier," she told Emily during one of their playdates. "He smiles more." "That's because he's figuring things out," Emily replied, ruffling Lily's hair affectionately. "He's learning how to balance everything, his powers, his responsibilities, and his dreams." As summer approached, Daniel found himself standing on a hill overlooking the town. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Beside him, Lily skipped happily, chasing fireflies as they blinked in and out of view. For the first time in years, Daniel allowed himself to feel hopeful. Life was still hard, and challenges lay ahead, but he wasn't facing them alone anymore. "Hey, Lil," he called softly. "What do you want to be when you grow up?" She stopped mid-skip, tilting her head thoughtfully. "I want to be like you," she said after a moment. "Strong and brave." Daniel chuckled, pulling her into a hug. "You already are, kiddo. You already are." In the distance, Emily waved at them, holding a picnic basket filled with sandwiches and lemonade. She had promised to teach Lily how to bake cookies that weekend, and Daniel planned to join them, eager to spend time together without worrying about secrets or danger. For all the pain and struggle he had endured, Daniel realized something profound. Sometimes strength isn't about lifting heavy objects or fighting enemies. Sometimes it's about carrying the weight of love and responsibility, and finding joy despite the burdens. And maybe, just maybe, that was the greatest power of all. As the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, Daniel made a silent promise, to himself, to Lily, and to the world. No matter what happened next, he would keep moving forward, step by step, always striving to be the best version of himself, because deep down he knew that was enough.